Emma, how long have you been in like the book Instagrammer world?
March of 2019, so we're coming up on 7 years.
Wow. Bookstagramming in general, isn't that kind of really when it took off? You've been in there since the beginning.
I feel like I have been. I remember I used to like hide it because I didn't want my mom to think I was weird. So I'd like set up pictures, which are all still on my account. I set up pictures with like a blanket backdrop, use random props to try and make it look aesthetic. There was a point where I got contact paper on a piece of plywood to have a marble background.
Like a secret identity?
Yeah, it kind of felt like that because I didn't tell anybody.
Did your mom ever find out?
She does know. She does know now.
Did she think it was weird?
Not weird, but she was just like, it was new to her because
Sure.
My mom is not of the social media. She likes her Facebook, and that's it.
That's how it goes sometimes. Hey everyone, it's a little too quiet. It's the Ferndale Library Podcast. It's brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library. I'm Jeff, and that's Emma.
Hi.
We're going to talk to Lisa Pierce today. So, I don't know. Get ready. It's going to rock. Let's do an intro for the pod
Okay.
where I talk about this book
Okay.
with you
Sounds good.
called Motor City Love Song
Got it.
by Lisa Pierce.
Yes,
A book you told me to read,
I did.
and I did,
Proud of you.
and I liked it
I'm so happy.
a lot. This is a book that is set in two different eras. It takes place in the late 90s, and then it hops ahead to 2023. It's written by Lisa Pierce, who wrote Love at 350 Degrees, a baking romance story. Now we have a music romance story. This is a Sapphic second chance romance about two characters. They're in love,
They're in love.
but they're pretty different energies. I don't know. One might be a fire sign, one might be an earth sign. We don't know yet. We don't know that, but that's Jace and Paloma. Their story is told from dual perspectives. You get to hear and be in both of their minds. Jace is eventually, not a spoiler, the manager of Paloma, who is an aspiring rock star coming out of the Detroit music scene. And they fall in love. And things get complicated. But it centers around a rock club called the Artemis Club. And when Jace finds out later in the future that this club is at risk of being closed forever, they have to throw a show. And who else could play that show but the person who rocked it more than anyone else in the world, Paloma. The only thing is she hasn't seen or talked to Paloma in years, and so it's a return to the past and maybe the return to a second chance. That's Motor City Love Song, and you get to hear a lot about Detroit. Emma, what'd you think about this book? What'd you like about it, I guess?
I think as I talk about it in the pod,
Yeah.
I love how close to Detroit it is, and I mention how I love seeing little bits of our city and Detroit in a book. And I love getting to point and go, I know where that is. And I also just kind of love a second chance where it's believable and there's good foundation even though something may have gone wrong. And I love people finding themselves and figuring things out and just learning how to be.
This to bring it back, Paloma in the late 90s into the early 2000s does have a hit song at that time. It's not huge. An album comes out and things get exciting and the opportunity to tour happens, and that's always exciting for independent bands in Detroit or anywhere really. But things go a bit south relationship wise, and when the added sort of thing about the call to the past is one of Paloma's songs has a resurgence of popularity because it's appearing in a Netflix show, and then it gets onto TikTok, and then it gets viral, and then everyone is curious about this long lost band from 20 years ago. That's added into Jace's kind of, I guess, not having a choice other than but to get Paloma, who's having a moment again. And for Jace, it's just like,
which is also just perfect for the moment, having an older song go viral.
Oh yeah,
and it just brings up so much.
Happens all the time. But then Jace goes off on a search for Paloma, and that's where a good bulk of the book starts, and we won't spoil the rest. So let's just go into our interview with Lisa Pierce, who's the author of Motor City Love Song.
Hello.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa Pierce. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you. How are you doing?
You know, well, Emma's got a blanket, and I am deprived of coffee, but we're great. I think we're good. Emma?
Doing good. It's my Taylor Swift. There's stacks of books with all the album titles on it that I got that I got as a graduation gift for my last job.
Aw.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yes. You've kind of met Emma already. So here's Emma in person, if you haven't met in person.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, in the first place, librarians are some of my heroes anyway. And Emma, you've been going above and beyond to help me kind of connect with some of your colleagues elsewhere in the state. So thank you very, very much.
It is no problem at all. I'm happy to help anytime.
Lisa Pierce, congrats on Motor City Love Song. I love it. Emma loves it. And so many people that I know around the local music scene also love it, which is like, that's cred. That's like,
oh, no kidding. That's a huge compliment. Thank them on my behalf.
I literally saw it, and I think I told Jeff about it, and I was like, Jeff, I feel like you have to read this book because it's like a quintessential, like, it gives Jeff vibes.
It did give Jeff vibes. I felt like I could even have some fun with this book, almost knowing some of the bands who are fictional that you're name dropping, who inspires who, and that was really fun. But also I was like, I did the whole classic thing. I'll just out myself right here on the podcast. I'm like, I don't really read romance that much. I don't even know if I like romance.
We've been working on it.
I know.
I feel like the definition of that is something people have to kind of personalize because, you know, I'm not somebody who went into writing to be a romance writer either. And sometimes I think just because I personally like to aim for a happy ending and, you know, especially after going through the angst of writing a manuscript, I want things to turn out okay, then by definition, it becomes a romance. Mm-hmm. Okay. But, you know, I feel like for me, it's almost more love stories. Sure. And people are, you know, every love story is a little different. So I hear where you're coming from, Jeff. I really do.
Oh, no. It's like an ongoing thing that I'm growing past my misconceptions about a genre that's like got such a confused stigma around it. So yeah, I'm growing out of it. Tell us about your writing life and how you got to the love stories, because your past is in acting and music and theater and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and you know, like many folks who write as adults, I did start writing as a kid. That said, acting just kind of took over my brain space and my time as I went through high school and then college. And then I decided to get an MFA once I moved to San Francisco. And so I was doing musical theater and cabaret and you know, being really busy. And it was admittedly kind of a dual career with communications work that I was doing in the healthcare industry at the same time to make sure I could afford to go on stage. Mm-hmm. And so about 20 years ago, my family moved to Metro Detroit, and my in-laws are all born and raised around here. I was new. I came from Richmond, Virginia originally, so this was a brand new location for me. And where the theater community is a bit smaller here, I still wanted to do more creatively. So I just came back to writing, and thankfully was able to find a writers group. About the same time, I kind of kept writing a story around a different rock and roll love story. And that became my first self-published book, Love and Other B-Sides, which came out about 13 years ago. So anyway, that just got me going. And I kept trying to find sort of a new project. And someone I'd met in a library local author event here out in Brighton liked Love and Other B-Sides. We stayed in touch, and she had gotten an agent and started to write cozy mysteries. At that time, there was a desire that the Hallmark publishing arm, which is no longer around, but at that time, they were looking to expand to more LGBTQ stories. So my friend was like, you need to pitch to them. I did. They didn't take it, but her agent did. So I was able to finish the manuscript. And thankfully, over the pandemic, a lot of people started embracing not just reading a lot, but reading really for what they want. And that's where the romance boom kind of came up. So with my book being about a baking show, it's called Love at 350 Degrees, it found a ready publisher with the Dial Press, which is part of Penguin Random House. And lo and behold, I had my first traditionally published book back in 2023. So that's kind of where it started. And meanwhile, once I moved here, I really started to go to concerts. Part of it was because my daughters were getting into middle school and high school, and everything. Any band worth its salt needs to tour through Detroit. Any indie band that wants to be really successful needs to play somewhere here. So I was going with them. Then I would start taking them to the concerts I liked. And then I started discovering, my God, there's so many bands here that I ought to have heard of. And now I've got the opportunity to see them as well. So getting to see like the Henchmen and Amy Gore and the Detroit Cobras and a bunch of other folks was amazing. Even more amazing was finding out that my partner's cousin used to be a music booker at Cross Street Station in Ypsilanti. And so he knew a lot of these musicians personally, and he had story after story of the shenanigans of running a rock and roll venue. To the point where I'm glad most of the band members stayed out of jail and nothing burned down. So
yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, pretty much. So with that background, then I decided I wanted to write something that was really looking at, who's kind of making the music, what that process is like, running a venue, performing at a venue, trying to make it, make your art and connect with people, and kind of that push to be famous at the same time, and what that does to you. So that's where my current book, Motor City Love Song, has come from.
And wow, that answers so many questions.
It makes me, this isn't writing related, but it makes me want to ask you, what's your favorite concert venue in Detroit? Or Metro Detroit,
that's hard. I mean, there's so many that are so good. I mean, and there are places, it's like, I love going to Elk Club. I love the Majestic's a longtime favorite. Look, anytime I go into even like the Fox is stunning. Going to see the bands in the summer up at Pine Knob is incredible. So it's kind of the time, place, and musician, but and even like one of the best concerts I went to was a triple bill at Planet UFO. And that, that was just as much for the music as for the vibe. So
You absolutely captured the energy of just being at those shows. The excitement, the edginess of it all. I almost felt like I could see the Artemis Club. In my mind, I kind of, it's too big for this, but I was almost seeing St. Andrews Hall, if you've ever been there, because you describe the coat check room being turned into like the ticket taking spot. And I was like, that's so St. Andrews. I love it. Tell us about developing the characters for this story, Jason and Paloma.
It was, I love to read about musicians, actors, writers, and all this. I've read a lot of memoirs, a lot of biographies. And one thing that it's kind of almost the rock and roll trope that they start off as young and fearless, and then they start getting famous, and then drugs and alcohol take over, and then they have a big crash out, and then they come back. And I was like, I'm not quite interested in that. I'm more interested in what is it that keeps people going and trying to get better and trying to do it what it is they want. And the fact is that looking at the Detroit scene, I was really impressed that a lot of the bands and the musicians, it was a fairly, to me, women were part of the music scene here, which I don't think is necessarily true everywhere. And that was impressive to me. I was curious if there had been any kind of self-identifying queer performers, and it's not that there weren't, but I came from San Francisco, where there are bands called like the Pansy Division and stuff, where that's like their leading edge, and here that wasn't, to my mind, the case. So what would happen if there was somebody who was trying to be authentic to themselves and still get a broader audience and connect and go forward from there? So from that kind of questioning to myself. And also I was kind of saying, what, nobody knows. Yeah. Meg White had her own mind of why she stepped away from the business. I'm not pretending to say that I know why. But in my case, if that question was posed to my character, what would be her reasoning? All that to say, Paloma Doral, my singer-songwriter, guitarist, starts out finding music as the way that she can basically kind of hold on. This is something she can, she's had a really rough life. She's starting to pull out of it as a teenager. She's finally kind of finding herself. And then she finds someone who believes in her and her talent, named Jace, who had been part of the Artemis Club, their music booker. She decides to become Paloma's manager. And I'm thinking about that person, Jace being the person who just loves anything and everything about performing without actually becoming a musician herself. She loves knowing all the bands. She loves getting to know people, how the puzzle pieces are put together. She likes she's dogged about getting stuff done on the road and all that. And so they're a really great combination until the point comes when their kind of missions start to diverge a bit, especially since they're also seeing each other. So you got, a very strange workplace romance going on at the same time as, they're trying to find their place in the music industry, not just in Detroit, but across the country and even overseas.
So this is a second chance romance.
It is.
Which I found really appealing. Maybe the next romance will be that. I really liked him with that vibe, but I liked what you did, the whole, I'm going to have to return to this relationship and everything that it dredges up, or even just remembering how special it was.
Right.
Simultaneously with, hey, how special this venue was. This whole like revisiting the past angle. I don't know, just talk more about writing that, because that just feels inherently emotional, and it brings in nostalgia, and it brings in regret, and it brings in over analysis of past decisions and all that. And that's coming through in the characters, but I just wonder from the writer's perspective what that was like.
Right. One thing I like to do is talk about people who are, well past 40 years old and still trying to find love and a relationship. And at that point, it's a bit more on their own terms. And so the structure of this book is a bit complex because, love is complex. So the book itself is told from 2 points of view. So the first half is told from Jace's point of view. So the second is with Paloma. And this structure gives them a chance to look back, way back when they, the careers were starting and things were starting to get exciting. And then not that long ago, present day issues coming out of the pandemic, where a lot of venues, because they had to close, were suffering or even closing. And so what was motivating Jace initially was, Paloma had disappeared out of her life 20 years before present day. And even now, she's still kind of bearing the scars of it. But because the Artemis is in danger of closing, she will do anything to help that venue and her friend, who's the proprietor, to survive. And so she decides, we've got to have a benefit concert. And because, her song got picked up by Netflix and is part of a show, and now it's so popular, guess who we're going to have as the headliner? It's going to have to be Paloma. I'm going to have to go find her. And so as she's searching for that, it is kind of that thing of not only personally, looking back about what you would have wanted to do differently, or seeing that you've changed as a person, or you've tried to change because of how badly things may have gone before, and hoping maybe you can do it right the second time is really appealing. And threaded through that is, I'm sure I'm talking your language, and I'm saying, when you hear a song, it recircuits your brain to where you were when you heard it, what it meant to you. Did you hear it live? I mean, that's another layer. If you actually were there when the musicians were right in front of you and you were breathing their air and absorbing their energy. So, on top of Jace and then Paloma trying to sort of reclaim the mistakes that they made, they're also just linked energy that they shared when they were together, that they would give anything to get back.
I feel like it's so impressive that the time jump from when they first broke up to when they get back together, or when they're together again, is like 20 years. I think the most I've ever read, it was like, it was a couple of years ago, like we dated, we went on a one date. Was there a reason you did such like a large gap in time, or was that just something you were like, it's 20 years, makes sense?
Well, I was imagining that for both of them, and with Paloma, her reasoning becomes clear later in the book. It's a mystery for a while, and you start to piece together her reasons for why it took that long once you get to her part of the story. With Jace, I think honestly, she had the love of her life, and it just disintegrated, it disappeared on her, and she wasn't able to really kind of find that connection again as much as she wanted to. There's also just, there's a point early in her part of the story where she's trying to make that third date with this gal that she met in speed dating work. And it's just hard anyway. Everybody kind of gets set in their ways by a certain point. But also when she just starts dissing a concert that she went to at one point in her life that Jace would have given her left arm to have gone to. It's like, how can I find anybody who wants to date me? I can't even agree on whether concerts are worth your time. So
I also just, sorry. Continue.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just also thinking, like, as we're sitting here, I kind of realized their whole relationship almost spans my whole life. And that feels crazy to like think about. But it's also like I'm sitting here because
to me to hear that.
And one of the things that like really tickled me is there's a page It's let me see which it's the start of chapter 2 where you mentioned Jace stopping for a red light on 9 Mile in Woodward.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like picture like this has been their drive, this their whole lot like for work and going to the Artemis Club. I'm like, I live right by Ferndale High School, so I'm like, this is something. It tickles me to see things that I know so well.
Oh yeah.
And while they're like they've had this whole existence in my whole life, and it's just so like kind of beautiful to like think about.
Aw.
And I just kind of I was just thinking about that, and it tickled me.
Lots of things tickle me in this book. Lots of references. Ferndale, Taylor, Clawson. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hamtramck, Woodbridge. You can go all over Detroit in this book.
Which is so cool because I feel like I haven't read a book where you like there's places that mention Detroit, but they're obviously like they just know like Detroit and like they don't know like the intricacies. But seeing like the red light at 9 Mile in Woodward, where I get stuck at least twice a week,
Yeah.
like I was just like, oh my god, wait a minute, like it felt like I was like that felt so special, which I just needed you to know that. I love that.
Thank you.
You mentioned just that traffic light.
For sure. Something else you did really well in this is capturing that energy of contentiousness. I'm thinking of the documentary that's made in the movie Cut to the Chorus. There, I say this objectively, and I won't name names, but there's like from a smaller local independent music scene, or one that doesn't seem to get as much glamour or platforming as Chicago or LA or New York. We're scrappier.
Right.
When we're scrappier,
Seattle,
there's like tension around, and there was always tension around who's going to get out and who's going to get famous, and how did they do it, and who did they step on to do it. And so like, and maybe this is true kind of everywhere once you get really down into like the dives and the venues that only hold 50 people and the bands that are really in their basements, is it can feel I don't know, like a big ugly high school sometimes, and everyone's looking over their shoulder.
Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows your secrets.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
It's a tough place to nurture a relationship. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and sometimes if you can grab hold of somebody to kind of get through the crab bucket, that's great. You can hold on to somebody versus pull them down. One thing that I saw early on was the documentary It Came from Detroit.
That's exactly what I thought you were referencing. I'm old enough to know those references, Lisa.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. Hold on.
Let me go off on a tear here. I interviewed the people who made that movie for one of my first stories as an intern. That's how old I am. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I was able to record my author's notes for the audiobook of Motor City Love Song. And the guy who was recording was like, oh my God, I worked on that documentary. I'm like, I'm a friend of yours now. Well, and this was introducing me because I did not grow up here, and it was giving me a chance to see a lot of people at their start, and to kind of hear the community that was being built, as well as just this person played that venue on this date kind of a thing. And the fact that so many people would play in on other people's bands. This is the same thing with doing musical theater. You've got cast members you've worked with forever. You've got cast members who are the new upstarts. You got the people who, why did they get the commercial and I didn't, and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think it's kind of a common thing with a lot of collaborative art is that you want everyone to succeed as long as you succeed first.
Collaborative art, but also performing arts. If you're on the stage. You're paid in applause,
which is a hard high to get off of too. Yeah. So what I was hoping to show was that sort of, that everybody was out there at the same time. People had different experiences of it. The person who holds the camera sometimes gets to tell the story. I think that was another issue with Jason Paloma, was that their story was being told by other people because Paloma dropped out and wasn't able to say it, and Jace was too wounded to talk about it. So, how do you kind of recover from that after many years? Is something that I'm sure others have had to deal with too. So, I mean,
Second chance romance.
second chance, exactly. Yeah.
I'm
And
thinking,
this is like a second chance, like I can get behind.
yes.
That's the thing, because second chance romance gets. There's one that I particularly read. It was another sapphic romance, funnily enough, but like one of them left the other at the altar, and then they ended up getting back together and lived happily ever after. And in my brain, I said, if you left me at the altar, I would lose my mind.
Oh, I know.
So
Yeah.
like that, I like when the second chance is a more believable.
Isn't there like a cliche in life, like there's no second chances in life? And there could be someone who's like in a really like, oh, just let the past go, or that club had its time, move on, and you don't want to go back to that person. Come on, move on. Like, but the hope, or even just trying, what is love? What is love? If not chance in and of itself, you are kind
Exactly.
of giving. Ugh,
I need to get you on like a Shakespeare stage right now, Jeff.
yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
resonated with me because I was like, well, we could just leave this club behind and you just never talk to this person ever again. Or
No.
you could.
Yeah. Or you could. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the conscious decision I made with this too, is that, a lot of people at the beginning of the story are saying what you just said. It's like, the Artemis has had its run.
Right.
Places close all the time.
Right.
Up all the time. Why is this so important? And I think some of it is just her loyalty to the owner of the place. So she's really wanting to make sure that Sabine, who inherited the space from her great uncle, when it started as a lecture hall and then became this pasted over, sorted, cigar burned stage. To kind of make sure that she can continue with it, but also just what did it mean to Jace and, who she sees herself as. Her biggest achievement was being in the mix of all this and making these things happen. And could it possibly, what does it stand for? Can it still stand for something more? And, my feeling is beyond these characters, yes. I mean, these places have history. These places, this is a lot of personal history for those people who performed there or went there, a lot of history for Detroit, with the Masonic Temple getting brought out of bankruptcy by Jack White. A lot of it was because of his experiences there and what he knew that meant to the city. So, I can kind of understand why you do want to try to make a stand if you can, for something that's that important to you.
Yeah, and I feel like with Detroit, there's a lot of like beautiful old buildings and so many that get torn down because age, whatever, or people just wanting to build their new little compounds and doing whatever they want and building their apartments. And I feel like there's such a huge push by residents and Metro Detroiters to be like, leave the beautiful buildings, make them, just restore them, don't tear them down. So I feel like that's something that's very like, I can't think of the word that really, it's not reflects, but it really connects with the readers.
Sure.
Especially locals who are like, these are buildings that are so near and dear to us. And while, yes, the new shiny Hudson's building is great, but you don't need to tear down like any of the other beautiful buildings. So I think that's something it speaks to the readers. I feel like that's what I was looking for.
Yes. And I found the passage where you're describing the old Michigan Theater, which was gutted and turned into a sloppy parking lot, really moving because, or just sat with me like, oh, so like this is what happens when you aren't like tenderly caring about the past and just letting it turn into a bit of a
Becomes apartments and parking lots.
Yeah, exactly.
Apartments and parking lots.
Well, and I'm grateful and glad that this is a story that's going to resonate with people who are from Detroit, from Michigan, because you know, the area needs its due. I also hope that people from outside of this area, you know, first off, there are enough references to anchor it, but they're not going to get lost.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, there's still this assumption that Detroit is, you know, boarded up storefronts and dangerous and all this stuff, which, you know, even when it was, you know, a time of really, you know, economic problems, was probably being painted even worse than it really was. And so to try to say, look, this is a dynamic place that even when things were tough, people were sticking around making art, you know, that the folks, some folks never moved, some folks came in. This was a place where they were going to do it themselves. And there's something to connect with, even if it's not part of your, you know, it wasn't your zip code.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it, you know, at the same time, I mean, my experience here, moving here, was driving by and seeing Michigan Station as, you know, with the broken glass and the empty-eyed, you know, huge towering building that was kind of frightening from a distance, to now where it's such a showpiece and kind of a symbol of what the city has pulled together to do. Mm-hmm. And that kind of image, I'm hoping that it opens any reader's eye to what's going on here then and what's going on now and what's possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Emma and I are saying we're tickled because there's like just enough for us, for the locals, but it is a universal story and it is a very human story. The characters are so well developed that people will have universal resonance with this. Like, yeah.
I feel like there's also like people who aren't from here will be seeing a new aspect of Detroit, because I feel like when people think of Detroit, they think of the sports.
Mm-hmm.
They may think of like the rap scene. I feel like would also be a little bit more prominent, like in like people who don't live here is like mines. Like they'll think Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the people I went to school with, like, oh, you live by 8 Mile, and they make the Eminem joke.
Right.
But like, so even then they'll be seeing Detroit through a lens that they don't get to see, which is also so very needed even to this day, where my partner's grandma was like, you live by Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
So like I feel like, not that his grandma's reading romance novels, but
maybe she'll start with this one.
Exactly. And so but like I think it's enough, like Jeff said, it's enough for us, like it's enough little treat for us, but it just shows. And I think it's even more like awesome that you didn't grow up here. Like you didn't grow up here. And you put so much thought and effort into showing all the details.
You fell in love with Detroit.
You fell in love with Detroit.
Fell in love with Detroit.
And you get to
fell in love with the town.
Love. You get to see that love through your work, which I think is like, I think the best part, because like, I don't know, just moving here, falling in love just creates like a different type of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought I would end up here, and I never thought how glad I would be that I did, because it's just so, you know, just an incredible town. I will say, I also am a reader who gets really snarky if I see, you know, a detail out of place. And so I really, I was doing things like, okay, when did delivery pizza become a thing downtown? Okay, no, people are still going over to Little Caesars and picking it up. Okay, yeah, you know, this kind of business. And then with the whole, I literally woke up in the middle of the night and was like, oh no, when were iPods invented? Could they have really had one? And it was like, yeah, okay. You know, so this kind of thing is my own self-imposed cross to bear, but I'm glad it just seems like it's great details and not just me sweating that I don't want to be called out by somebody, you know, some comic book guy, you know, voiced person.
They're out there.
And see, I love that. Because it makes me think of, I love Emily Henry, I'm prefacing, but she writes books in kind of nondescript lower peninsula, west side of Michigan beach towns. And I'm like, just say you're at the Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Yeah.
Just say
Yeah.
you're there. Don't make up a fake town.
Sure.
Do the research and make it the place.
Yeah.
And so since you did that and you went into such detail and care, that makes me so happy, because there's so many people who, like, if it's set in Michigan or if like they set it it could be anywhere, honestly, and it may just be me that it bothers, but they're like, I'm like, if you make a fake little town, I know it's easier, but there's probably a little town you could use, and it would be so special.
Yeah. I agree. Come on.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of research.
Yeah.
I know. Well, with that in mind, however, a piece of the story does take place up north. And I do have a lot of personal experience visiting Empire, getting to know Traverse City, some of the other places. Literally, I could not find the one lake town that had like all the stuff in it that I needed. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to invent something. And then trying to find a name of a town in Michigan that hasn't already been invented was pretty much impossible. I think I found the only fake name I could come up with. So,
That too is impressive in itself.
to the real folks up there. But, staging meant that I had to take a bit of a flight of fancy.
Okay. I think I only have 2 more nerdy questions. One of them is theater, cabaret, being on a stage, and then also being at a laptop worrying about when iPods come out.
Yeah, really.
I almost wonder if Jason Paloma were like, you're splitting personalities of being on a stage, but then also being like, I don't know what Jace is, but clearly not a performer. A little
Right.
more detail oriented,
Like
per se.
just stage managing,
A little
making
more,
sure everything
yeah,
works
sure,
well.
yeah, a little more organized, as one writer might have to be.
Did
it start to feel like
I'm
that at all?
fascinated by you saying that. That's interesting. And
I didn't know you
sure.
did cabaret. I knew you were in the performing arts, but like, wow, cabaret.
Well,
Welcome and bienvenue.
Yeah, let's put some quotation marks around cabaret. It's sort of,
Okay.
cabaret is often what you do when you're not being cast in something else and you,
Okay.
really have this great song. I did enjoy that kind of thing. I think some of this is just that I'm fascinated by anybody who's willing to just try to do any kind of performance. Why the hell was I doing it? I don't know. I mean, my brother was very much into Broadway. He converted me at an early age, and instead of getting to know the rock and roll pantheon, I was learning about Ethel Merman and stuff.
Yes.
And that passed. But all I will say is that I think a story is a story, and the thing that I enjoy about having an actor's perspective on this is that first off, I love writing dialogue. And so sometimes these stories just start with 2 characters talking to each other, and suddenly I start discovering things about them that I didn't know just because I'm letting them talk, and seeing how one speaks versus the other and what one might leave out. But then the challenge is when you're an actor, you're handed a script, and the scripting, maybe there's some stage directions, but often it's just words, and you literally have to fill in every blank for yourself inside yourself. And then when you're on stage, you can't, you're not going to be holding up a sign that explains why you're doing something. It has to just kind of flow. Whereas the novel, you need to bring everybody along. They need to see what you're seeing. They need to understand a bit more what's going in people's heads. So that's the challenge now. That's the newer piece. I get to, in a way, be a director when I'm a writer, because then I have to know everything from what are they wearing to where are they going next to, how many people are in the room? Did everybody get a speaking part? All this kind of stuff becomes sort of the stage direction piece that I knew from my theater days.
I read somewhere else, and you mentioned at the start of the interview that you like a happy ending.
Yes.
Lisa, why do you like a happy ending? Tell us about the dedication. I love a happy ending. I know that much.
Yes. I think some of it is that sense that if you can't, life is hard enough. If you're spending your time writing or reading, you may want the comfort of knowing, okay, as you know, things will work out. Somehow things will work out. It's going to be okay.
Sure.
And also, I just feel that that's the kind of book I'd want to take off the shelf anyway. You know, my sense was I want to write about people like folks I know. I want to write about folks who are around my age and have some of my common interests and things like this. And I want to see what's possible. I want to see the good that might come out of that. So that's driving it.
Sure.
And again, there's hope out there. Anybody deserves to find, you know, the lid to their pot. Everybody, you know, needs to be able to see that they've got, you know, they've got connections and they've got family, but then they've got people who are special to them and people who are special to only them. And hopefully this can help inspire people to find that for themselves if they don't already have it.
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
Finding those community spaces.
Yeah. I can't resist one more just writerly question. It feels like with that in mind, it on any given writing day, it could give you a sense of incredible freedom, but also maybe also caution. Like, what could I put my characters through today? I could kind of do whatever I want because I know they're going to have a happy ending, but then you also have to have them. Well, I can't push it too far.
There's so many things you can do within a romance book.
Sure.
You only have so many pages.
You only have so many pages. And, you know, interestingly, my first book, Love at 350, because I was writing it initially thinking it might be published by Hallmark, I also then had the added challenge of not having any swear words in it.
Oh.
I did not think was possible. I made up for it in Motor City Love Song. But yeah, you know, to some degree, you know, I'm not somebody who's going to put people in desperate peril.
Sure.
I think it's more like they need to learn how to get out of their own way. You know, stop making the same mistakes they always make. Try something different, you know, try to understand their own effect on other people. Be gentle with themselves too, you know, to not, you know, guilt is not going to help them either. So yeah, I for me, it's more like, all right. And also I'm trying to push a little bit more to, you know, and I was appreciating you saying towards the real, you know, something that could really happen. I love that romance is such a varied genre where you've got things that can seem kind of fairy tale or fantastical, you know. But with me, I want something that, yeah, you know, that could happen. I can understand how that might work. And I can understand why that's a problem. And I can understand why I'm yelling at this character to just get over themselves and figure out how to get through it, because there's going to be something better off if they do. So
wonderful. Emma, I'm out of questions.
What are you working on next?
Oh, that's a good question.
You just came, Motor City Love Song just came out, so you can totally say nothing.
Sure.
But I'm horribly nosy.
I am certainly working on some ideas, and I'm hopeful to be able to continue to work with Dial Press because they've been incredibly great partners in developing both of the books that I've done with them. So all I can say is it's going to be looking at you know, some more folks who are over the age of 40 and trying to figure out, all right, I've lived my life for other people. I need to start living it for me. But what does that mean? I still have a few hobbies I can mine for material. It's like once I run out of things I like to do, unfortunately, it might just end up being a book about me petting my cat, which would be nothing I'd buy. So, you know, my hope is that I've got a couple of interesting stories where, once again, people who really want to put themselves out there get that chance, and then they have to kind of own the consequences, but hopefully they come out the other side not only feeling more like themselves, but also having someone else who appreciates it too.
I also think that's filling a really great, I don't want to say like niche, because there's definitely several books with like older main characters out there. But that's something like I repeatedly see as a reader, people asking for in like the romance space is, can we please have people who aren't like 20 somethings in college. One of my friends, Eliza MacArthur, writes like a man who's just got divorced in his like 40s and is going to therapy. And it's like there's such a demand for romance with older characters. And I think that's really awesome that that's what you're writing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I would also hope that that doesn't limit it to people thinking, well, then I have to be over 40 to enjoy it either.
Yeah, no.
I'm kind of impressed by some folks who are quite interested to see, all right, what comes next? You know, what might I be slamming up against as I get older? And things, you know, again, there's a lot of variety out there. You don't have to be one thing or one way to make it work. So.
Exactly.
Yep.
Lisa, thanks so much for hanging out with us. This was great.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
That was our interview with Lisa Pierce about her newest book, Motor City Love Song. And if you want to hear more about Motor City Love Song and her other work, Lisa Pierce will be joining us at the Ferndale Area District Library Thursday, May 28th. Leave at 6:30.
That's correct.
p.m. And we'll be moderated conversation. Her books will be available to purchase through Love and Other Books, our beautiful neighbors across the street.
Our wonderful neighborhood bookstore, who is literally our neighbor across the street.
Neighborhood neighbor.
That's a free event. Go to fadl.org to find out more information. This has been a little too quiet. It's the Ferndale Library podcast. It's brought to you by the Friends of the Ferndale Library. You can find more information on our website. We'll also be in the show notes linking to Lisa's website, Lisa's socials, information about Motor City Love Song, and so much more. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this wonderful podcast. And thanks for listening.